In specialty healthcare, growth is not optional, but scaling with operational excellence, that's the hard part. I'm Joe Zboch. This is Scaling Specialty Growth.
Thanks for listening. Today's guest is Jenn Muina, Divisional VP at Gastro Health, a national specialty firm with over 150 locations and more than 400 physicians. Gastro Health was an early mover in PE-backed GI consolidation. Jenn runs the Florida division, where she's coordinated the integration of multiple acquired practices into one cohesive operation. Jenn, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
First question, really about how you think about, especially Gastro Health, with the PE-backed motion, acquiring practices, integrating them, that being one of the main growth levers, at least early on in the practice history, and I think it continues to this day. So how do you, as an ops leader, think about balancing aggressive growth goals while maintaining the operational excellence? Because you've got to pay attention to not just the patient experience, but also that of the practices that have, in a sense, been trusted or being integrated in the Gastro Health brand. How do you think about that?
Yeah, those are two goals that are not mutually exclusive, but they go hand in hand. And I think that each merits a space in the way that you run the operation. And I think first and foremost for us is you never want to lose sight of what your goal is, right? And what the mission. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is the patient. So it has to become part of the fabric of how you operate as a team with the patient always in mind. And whether you're making decisions about who and where and how you partner, whether you are trying to execute operational excellence initiatives, that's paramount, right? I think part of our success has been that we very early on created a cross-functional team of subject matter experts that in their own right own their lanes, but work very well together. And it's important, I think, when you are setting out for growth, you have to align as a team on what that vision looks like for the long term. And you have to probably make a decision very early on in that process, how deeply you want to integrate or not, right? I think that that's something that differentiates us in the industry, where we opted to go the road less traveled and do a lot of that deep integration on the front end. And it's certainly not for the faint of heart, because it's a hard thing to do, but I think that it at the end of the day helped us with our growth, because when you build that integration, then as you're partnering with groups and also trying to maintain your current state steady state business, you're building a technology landscape for your organization that allows for that integration more seamlessly.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it sounds like you've put together these teams, and you guys are on the same side of the table, right? And on the other side is the patient, right? How do we serve that patient, and what does it look like to really bring this practice into the fold? Can you maybe dig in a little bit in terms of what that integration actually looks like, what you're paying attention to, what you've seen success with? You said the road less traveled. What can you tell us about that road that you've built yourself?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I didn't build it myself. We built it with a
Of
lot of
course.
teammates that put in the elbow grease. So I would say when we started to grow, we took a pause and as a team said, what does that integration plan look like? If we don't have one, what do we need to build to make that possible? So as you know, we're in 7 different divisions at this point in different states. And I have a running joke when I was running integration. I always said, once you've seen one GI practice, you've seen one GI practice, because the fact of the matter is that there's no two that are identical or the same. They each have their nuances, and healthcare, even though we are an enterprise organization, healthcare is very local at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So I think when you're looking to partner with groups, you have to really understand the group that you're partnering with before you can even start to introduce change or have the conversation around what will change, right? So you have to go in and respect the current state and want to understand it, why they do what they do, how they do what they do. And I think that having that foundational understanding helps inform the plan on what you need to change moving forward to integrate them into your organization and your landscape.
Yeah. Obviously, you guys have seen a lot of success with this model. When you kind of roll out some of this integration plan after you've understood the current state, what are some of the things that you're starting with? Have you found any, do you subscribe to this idea of kind of quick wins to continue building that kind of that trust with the practice, or what does that approach look like?
So I think the entire cross-functional team that's executing this integration all has to come at that with the same mindset of being a change agent,
Mm.
right? Because you are helping people navigate change, and everyone adapts to change at different rates and in different ways, right? And so it's a lot of communication, anticipating what the impact of some of the things that they're going to have to endure when they're going through this change, helping to lessen the impact for them and help them understand every step of the way. So that way they feel like they are part of the process of that change rather than throwing the change at them or doing something to them. Rather, they're embarking on this journey with you of change and being part of the conversation and part of the plan. So that way, when we are implementing the change, they're expecting it, right? It's not something that we're just bringing on them or that it's coming out of nowhere. So, really, first and foremost, we go in and try to thoroughly understand the boots on the ground operation, right? And we're talking to folks that are sitting at the front desk checking in patients, the ones who are picking up the phones and answering phone calls, the ones who are triaging and scheduling procedures, because ultimately they're the ones that are doing all the hard work to service the patient. So understanding how they do what they do helps you understand, okay, as you're going to join our organization and you're going to fold into our systems landscape, our operations, how do we do that in a seamless way? Let me not say seamless because it's never seamless, right? You're always going to break a little bit of glass when you're navigating change, but ultimately it's honoring and appreciating what they're doing well and finding ways to perpetuate that and sometimes learn from it, right? You can never just go into a partnership and think that the way you've been doing things forever is the right way and that there's no other way of doing it. So with every partnership that we've had, we've learned something through it, whether it's a learning that helped fortify our process to be better at integrating or learning about better ways of doing things and helping honor that when they join and also maybe adopting it because we think, look, they're doing something well and how do we apply that here? So you always have to be iterating and you always have to be looking for opportunities to improve your process
Yeah.
because if you don't, then you're just going to remain stale and never achieve that operational excellence that you're trying to.
Yeah. And so I imagine you're introducing change. You're also introducing back end or back office and some front office. Can you tell me about maybe a recent project? I know integration of practices is a primary growth driver for Gastro Health, of course. But have you and the team rolled out anything in terms of access, patient acquisition, or other plays or ideas to help grow the brand and grow patient volume?
Yeah. So actually, I think something that we've accomplished and I'm very proud of, as I mentioned earlier on, doing the deep integration is the road less traveled and it's a little bit harder. But when you're able to do that, what we've accomplished is we're as widespread as we are, and we're all in one instance of the EHR platform that we're on. And so with that, you're able to take that and achieve clinical excellence and maybe bridge gaps in care where maybe you didn't have that insight before, but you're able to tap into data that's very powerful. And we've been able to partner with a partner who basically, in essence, is able to help us leverage our clinical data and identify where maybe we have gaps in care, that then we're able to take that data and act upon it, operationalize it, and then close in on that gap. So perfect example is we, as gastroenterology and a specialty, recalls is something that is very common and routine in our specialty. And so we were able to identify through our data where, for whatever reason, if a recall had been missed or whatnot, and that gap existed for a patient, we were able to ascertain how to close in on that gap and capture those patients and bring them back for their recalls. And so otherwise, if we hadn't done the deep integration that we did, otherwise we would not have been able to accomplish things like that. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We're just dipping our toes and starting to grow in that partnership and see what else we can achieve through those clinical initiatives.
Yeah, yeah. The data piece is really interesting. I can't imagine just the benefit of being on one instance of the EHR brings in terms of. So, do you have a model where you said seven different divisions, right? So, when you think about rolling out, do you have portfolio based approach? where maybe in this market we're testing something before we roll it out to the broader? Do you have kind of like innovation beds, or what does it look like to be constantly evolving and iterating and then rolling out in any of those initiatives? How does that look?
Yeah. Well, so our team, we're strong believers in the pilot because we are an integrated system. And when you're implementing technology, it's a large provider base and patient base. So you don't want to ever change or grow or implement just for the sake of changing, implementing, or improving, right? You want to do it in a mindful way and where it makes sense. And so when we identify whether it's technology, a new process, or whatever type of integration it is, we always want to first pilot somewhere where we identify a practice that would benefit from it. And in that pilot, you're pressure testing the product, you are learning, you are iterating on it, and you're tweaking it along the way so that you can perfect it so that when you go to scale it, everyone's getting the best benefit out of that product or that solution. So
What are
you
some
kind of have to, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just thinking, I was like, man, so what are some of the challenges right now in GI environment that are at the forefront or at the front of your mind that you're working through across, is it really patient access and streamlining that patient experience? I know obviously GI is very procedurally driven. Where are you looking to optimize and continue to innovate on the patient front? Going back to the beginning of the conversation, that's the lens through which we view all things.
Yeah. I don't think the challenges that we experience here from a patient access perspective or things of that nature are relegated to GI. I think you probably see it permeate to a lot of other specialties where if you look at call answer rates, if you look at referral conversion rates, in essence, at the end of the day, your goal is a patient needs care. You want them to get that care and you want them to get it in a timely manner. And so you want to build processes or implement technology that are going to facilitate that so that they have the very best healthcare experience that they possibly can with your providers and your organization. And you're constantly having to navigate the challenge of the influx and demand of those things and the bandwidth of the teams that you have that are receiving whether it's phone calls, faxes, referrals, and how do you navigate that and implement technologicals that help them meet that demand, but in a way where you are improving the process rather than burdening it, right? Because it goes back to you don't want to just implement technology solutions for the sake of implementing technology solutions. You want them to be the right technology solutions, and you want them to be solutions that are going to help complement what your team on the ground is doing.
Yeah. So often it feels like here's a technology solution in search of a problem, right? We need to start with that problem.
Right.
That's interesting. So are you directly overseeing or you're working with your team where you have either the coordinators on the floor that are obviously working to meet patients where they are? How do you surface either gaps in process or opportunities to make that workflow more streamlined? Or are you looking at operational insights and reporting inside of the EHR? How does the insights from across all these different locations, which have come from obviously the integration, right? And so they have their own different flavors of doing things. So how are you surfacing all of these thoughts and these insights to kind of create a kind of a divisional level view or point of view on the opportunity to then go and address it? Because that problem can have different flavors and different practices and in different markets.
Yeah. So you have to walk a balance, especially when you have a platform like ours that is very integrated, where there, to a certain extent, you have to maintain certain things in a standardized fashion, because if not, then it's just simply difficult to manage that system or that network. But you also want to give practices, again, because healthcare is very local and you have to appreciate and allow for certain nuances within a practice or a region. So you have to have first open lines of communication. You have to always be getting feedback, whether it's anecdotal or through data, with the practice that's on the boots on the ground, right? So your practice managers who are there day in and day out, managing their staff, having touch points with them, and also having a dialogue with your providers, because they're the ones interacting with the patients every day, so they have a lens as well. But then we also have data that we're able to pull up at the leadership level, where we help use that data to pair with what we're receiving anecdotally at the practice level, and pairing those things together. And then with our cross-functional teams and the subject matter experts in their own right, leveraging those teammates to help devise solutions. So, if we have a pocket where providers are wanting to target marketing in a region, we're going to leverage the technology we have, the data we have, and also our marketing team that we have, and come up with a plan for how we're going to attack marketing in that region. And that might look different in that region than it does in another region, because every region is contending with different factors, I think.
I think that's a theme that I've heard from you throughout the conversation, is just creating and maintaining those open lines of communication so that you're really empowering the practices to get the most out of the technology stack and the data and the expertise that you have at the Gastro Health level, but being able to kind of iterate and deploy things at the individual market level, and entrusting those teams to be able to get the most out of the tools that they have, and paired well with their local healthcare is local, their knowledge of their market and their patient population. 2026, lots has been going on, a lot of innovation lately. What are you guys working on at the kind of the Gastro Health level that you're excited about?
So we've been putting a lot of time and energy into trying to strategize and execute on a vision for how we deploy AI, because AI is everywhere and it's permeating to a lot of different layers in healthcare. And everything else that we implement, we want to make sure that whatever we are implementing, we're doing it in a mindful way and prioritizing where we think we're going to drive the biggest impact. And I think, at least as I've been engaging in the project, my sentiments around it are AI is not here to replace people. I see it as a tool to help complement what we have. And if anything, it helps lessen the burden on your staff, so that then you're able to open their capacity and make it possible for them to thrive and succeed in what they're trying to service for the patient. So we look at it as where do we have pockets where if we were to leverage AI, we would really be able to affect really material change and impact to workflow that makes just the practice, the staff, the physicians more efficient, and ultimately is the means to the end, which is the goal of the patient having a good experience.
I feel like yes, you're spot on. AI is everywhere. It's almost unavoidable. It is unavoidable. There's maybe there's two ways to think about it, or at least that I'm chewing through right now. There's one where I have this workflow or this process in place. How can I use AI to accelerate it to where my team members aren't spending so much time doing either low value or the kind of work that leads to burnout and high turnover? There's that. So like improving an existing workflow. And there's also another aspect of it that I'm curious, being on a single EHR instance and having access to data that maybe some other groups that have grown a similar way don't, which is net new types of workflows that are more purely AI native. Do you have a framework in terms of identifying AI opportunities for AI? Or do you subscribe to or have thoughts on improving a workflow that exists and accelerating it once it's been validated and proven, versus a net new workflow that is only possible because of AI? Do you have thoughts on that, or is that part of your approach at Gastro?
So I think in any organization, it's going to be a hybrid of those two things eventually. I think what we decided as a team to focus on first was looking at the workflows in a practice. What are the high value added things where if we were to put in AI in the foundation of that workflow, that it would then either make that workflow that maybe was historically extremely manual more efficient, so we're able to get more throughput in that process, and then patients are getting what they need faster, or help increase the provider's capacity so that they're able to see their patients, review their results, call patients back, and do all those things and not contribute to physician burnout, right? And make it possible that their workflow is efficient. And so I think that's the primary target priority. And then as things start to emerge in the industry and you start to learn about what's out there and you identify new things that are net new value adds where you never thought that was something that could exist, and then you get introduced to a new product and you say, wow, I never would have dreamed that was a possibility, but here we are, and here's something that we can explore and maybe add a new efficiency that we never had before.
Yeah. In my AI relates to work, and there's AI almost in your personal life. And so one of the things that I've subscribed to is I call it an excuse case, right? It's like, I wonder if AI can do this aspect of something and make it more efficient. Because I think you're right in terms of the type of work that is necessary but causes burnout is perfect for AI to like offload that and replace that manual work with more meaningful work, whether it's the physician side or the staff side. I really like that perspective that you guys have. What's the best way for other operators to get in touch with you? Are you on LinkedIn?
I am.
Okay. And it's Jenn Muina, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah, because I mean, with your experience on the operational front and integrating a bunch of different practices and the lessons learned there, I think you have a unique wealth of experience, and I really appreciate you sharing some of it with us today.
No, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks, Jenn.
Hey, it's Joe. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, share with a peer. And if you're looking to scale referral operations to drive growth and efficiency, visit hatchcare.com.